morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee at 10. After our long extended break and our refresh galleries, obviously want to thank Roastin for providing all of the wonderful coffee and pastries. If you are only viewing online, you have to come in and get some free stuff. I also want to thank our exhibition sponsors. There are several for these exhibitions. There's a lot of work that went into procuring all of the works available. We've got Women Moving Millions, Petoskey, Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation, Charlevoix County Community Foundation, Comfort Keepers, Michigan Arts and Culture Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Thank you so much for all that you do for us. Today, we are welcoming our newest staff member, Jennifer Cantley. Jennifer has been here for a whole 2.5 weeks and came and jumped in like immediately, first day into installing these exhibitions. So without further ado, let's welcome Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Alyssa. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, I do have a quiet voice, so mics are my friend. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I'm so excited. This is my first Coffee at 10, so presenting is really exciting. Hold on, I think I'm getting feedback. Yep, let's put this over here. There we go, that's better. Okay. So today I'm not going to talk so much about the exhibition because there's plenty of other experts that are going to talk about all the great things happening in the galleries. I'm here to introduce myself, tell you all a little bit about my career history, and then also my guiding values. And just kind of the direction that I'm thinking of going in for the visual arts program here in Petoskey. So this will be split up into 2 parts. One is more my history, the other is more my vision. And then I also ask if you have questions, please just keep them till the end. There'll be plenty of time at the end. We just want to get through all this, and who knows, maybe I'll answer one of your questions while I'm talking. So first, I just want to show you all where I'm from because there has been some confusion. So I'm from southeastern Michigan, born and raised. So that orange circle is kind of the area that I lived in when I was younger. I did go to school in Michigan. So I received my BFA, Bachelor of Fine Art, from Eastern Michigan University, and then went on to receive my Master's of Fine Art from Kendall College of Art and Design over in Grand Rapids. After grad school, I kind of meandered around for a little bit, spent some time down south in Atlanta, Georgia, and then eventually ended up in a place called Toledo, Ohio. So that little green circle, that's where I was before I came here. I worked at the Toledo Museum of Art. Some people think that I am from Ohio. I, have a soft spot for Ohio, but I'm not from Ohio. I'm from Michigan. So just wanted to, I know they're pretty close, right? But I'm not from there. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience in Toledo and at the Toledo Museum of Art as I talk through kind of my previous work. So just a little bit about me as an arts professional. I consider myself a curator, an educator, an artist, and I am very community focused. Community is something that's really important to me and is kind of a through line through everything I do. So to talk a little bit about my background in curation. So I've been an artist for quite some time. And as like an emerging artist, you always have opportunities to put your art up in random coffee shops and places. So I had that experience going into grad school, but I didn't have like this, robust gallery experience until one day when I was in grad school at Kendall, the dean came to all of the grad students and was like, we have this space. You can use it as a gallery, you can use it as a mixed use space, but we don't know what to do with it. So we're just seeing if the grad students want to do anything with it. And, I was like, I have time, I have 2 jobs, I'm going to grad school full time. I might as well, try something else. And so galleries were something that were really interesting to me. So I roped in one of my friends and classmates, Amber Bledsoe in this picture, and we started a gallery. And it was really like a trial by fire. We didn't have a budget. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we learned that there were a lot of people around us who knew what they were doing. And so we learned from calling in favors, asking for community help and collaboration. And people were so willing to help us build this gallery from scratch. And it's called the Alluvium Gallery. Last I checked, it was still running, but I don't know if it is anymore. But you can see baby Jennifer up there at the opening week of the Alluvium Gallery. And so that experience really helped me root my curatorial work and like dialogue, exchange, and supporting diverse voices. Having art displays is really about the art as much as it's about the viewer who comes and sees the artwork. So I like to create experiences for building community within exhibitions. I did find some like random pictures deep in my archive of like some of the early galleries that I ran. Picture here in the middle left, that is from a tiny gallery I ran in Georgia for a time. And that's actually my student work. So I taught middle and high school. And so I was able to display my student work in that exhibition. Over here on the far right, this is a gallery in a hallway, which we know very well here. It was called the Education Gallery. But this exhibition I wanted to talk about briefly. It's kind of, it's not that dynamic. It's just a bunch of pictures. But it was working with the city of Toledo that had a program called Shoot This, Not That. In Toledo, there is a lot of gun violence. And so this program was created as a way to help youth that are affected by gun violence and give them creative outlets. Rather than, going and getting into trouble after school and during the summer, this was a time to learn about photography, tell their stories. And then we put it up in this gallery to, show people their stories. And so those are things that, little things like that that are really important to me in my curatorial work. Of course, having like bigger exhibitions with professional artists, but also finding ways to support youth and community members. And then these bottom pictures, just a few galleries that I worked in, as well as the middle piece. So I was a art consultant for a time for luxury cruise lines. So if you've ever been on a luxury cruise with like the Picassos and Rauschenbergs and things like that, I was the person who put that art up. And so apparently I was particularly impressed by my arranging of these vessels in these nooks, because I took a picture, I found it in my archives. But that's was an experience that I had that really helped me. Before, I'd worked more specifically in the art world and not so much the design world. And so when I became an art consultant, I started working with architects, interior designers, international artists, and we do our installs in Europe too. So it, helped me learn to work with people from all over the world, and also learn to work with people who don't speak the same language as you. That's always a fun thing to do, learning how to communicate with somebody who, before Google Translate was a thing, learning how to communicate with people from all over. And then the last picture, this was the last gallery that I worked at. It was called the Robert C. and Susan Savage Community Gallery, and that's at the Toledo Museum of Art. So it's a gallery within the museum, but focused on the community. All right. So I just wanted to show a few examples of things that I've done in the past. A lot of them are from the community gallery, but just want to highlight a few. I do like to try to create like more immersive experiences where people really feel a like connection, and they feel like they are completely encompassed by an exhibition. There are definitely places for white box galleries with art hanging on the walls, like the Barbara Graham exhibition, but there's also a lot of opportunities for creating more interactive and immersive environments within galleries. And so up on the top left, this was an exhibition by Peruvian artist Jordi Poma. And he has these really beautiful sculptures that he usually encompasses in plants. But in a museum setting, you can't have plants because plants bring bugs. So we were trying to think of ways to represent the Peruvian rainforest without bringing plants in. So we did, let's see if I can do this. Yeah. Back here, you can kind of see it. We created a vinyl treatment to kind of create that immersive feeling. So we have some areas I'm happy to talk about later, but I don't want to take too much time talking about each of these. But then over here, I did want to talk about, this is an artist by the name of Chili Rodriguez. So he was a street artist. So he came up at a young age doing illegal graffiti. That was his like introduction to art. And then eventually he refined his craft and became a really well-known artist within the Toledo community, and has his own gallery, has his own mural business. And being an urban area, Toledo is there's a lot of murals, there's a lot of street art, there's a huge culture of that. But in like the museum gallery world, it hadn't really been adopted. So there was like this kind of divide between these two art cultures within the city. So I started talking to Chili, and so we decided to create an exhibition of his work to help bridge that gap between these two art scenes that were happening simultaneously in the city. And so we put a skateboard ramp in a museum, which was pretty exciting for me. But we introduced a lot of people who'd never been introduced to things like street art to street art. And it was the best attended exhibition I've ever had. There were like 300 people there, and for the opening. And so these are the kind of things that I look for, are things, not to say that we're going to bring like graffiti art to Petoskey. Like, I understand that might not be like what we're looking for here, but finding things that like people are interested in, but might have been ignored previously, or just might have been separate from some of like the more structured art institutions, in order to bring together that community, because there are a lot of people who didn't feel like they were invited to the museum because they didn't see things that they felt represented them and represented their culture. So this was one of the ways that we worked to make people feel like they belonged. All right. So again, just kind of throwing out examples so you can all kind of see some of my style. And then I wanted to show the bottom right piece here. So I really like working with artists on things that they're interested in pursuing that might be a little bit outside of their comfort zone. And especially if it's like installation based or immersive, I'm like, heck yeah. So this bottom right piece, this was a film photographer. He goes by Dirty Kicks. There's a lot of aliases in Toledo. And he wanted to create this installation collage of his pieces. He felt like it spoke to what he was going for this exhibition. So we worked together and we found a place and we created this installation. And it was kind of a process, because it was a retail gallery. Things were, needed to be for sale, but how do you sell installation like that? So we found ways to, still, you always, in the arts, you always need to make some money, right? You need to support yourself. And so we worked through that for this exhibition. And then another thing that I always try to do, community and connection and also education are really important to me. So in gallery experiences are something that I try to add. So over here, at the beginning, I was talking about this artist, Jordi Poma. He creates these really beautiful textural hand-built ceramics. And if you see them, you really, really want to touch them. You want to pick them up, but they're really, really fragile because they're ceramic. So no one was allowed to touch them. But we were having a lot of kids tours and things coming through, and they wanted to touch things. And I'm a tactile person. I also wanted to as well. So I worked with the artist and we created these touch tiles. So it was a representation of each of the pieces. And so that people could touch those. And so they could touch those and not the art. And it was also a really great teaching experience for young art enthusiasts when they're learning that like you shouldn't touch the art. It's a great experience to start that conversation. And so these other areas, this artist up top, Brenda Singletary, she had a lot of pieces that were about memory and emotion. And so she created these abstract pieces based on those experiences. And so I worked with the artist and we created this wall over here where visitors could create their own artwork with memories and their experiences, and it could be in conversation with the artist's work. And again, another interactive piece here where you interact with this table piece. So it's a piece of art that you can actually, manipulate and sit at and be in community together. And then lastly, this piece over here, this was a printmaking exhibition that I had. And in education, I learned that a lot of people have no idea what printmaking is. They're just like, yes, a newspaper. And you're like, kind of. So we created these didactic educational signage to teach people what different types of printmaking were. So in this case, we had intaglio and woodcut so that people knew what they were working at, what they were looking at, and they could see like how, intricate and complicated this process really is. And it helps people better appreciate the art that they're looking at if they can better understand it. Because some of us, we do have, long educations in art and we understand the nuances, but not everyone does. So we want to make sure that people really can experience art thoroughly and understand all aspects of it. So the next part of my career, I'm an educator. So I have taught art to all ages, from littlest to, I think the oldest person was like 92. So haven't quite reached over 100 yet. But I've taught in formal and informal teaching settings. Kind of a fact that I don't normally tell people, so you guys are getting the inside scoop. I started my education career teaching paint and pours. So that's the thing where you get some wine and you do a step-by-step painting. I had an undergrad professor that was always like, Jennifer, you have to be a teacher. And I was like, yeah, right, I'm never going to do that. And so he was right that I should have been a teacher, because when I did that paint and pour class, I really, really enjoyed it. And then it blossomed into a long career of teaching, primarily youth, but all ages. And so I did teach middle and high school for some time. High school students are so fun to teach. And then after that, or kind of simultaneously in some aspects, I had opportunities to manage art schools, and then eventually started to manage the art school at the Toledo Museum of Art. I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Toledo Museum of Art, but their art school began in 1903, and it has a very long history, and it's huge. We see thousands of students every single year, hundreds of courses annually. And so that was a really great experience in learning that I really like education administration as well, where I like to teach the kids, but I also like to manage the larger schools. And to just give a little bit of context about kind of how I do things and how things could apply here. When I started at the Toledo Museum of Art, it was early 2021. So the pandemic was still happening. So we had to deal with things like, low class sizes. We had to, there was so much going on. So the enrollment numbers had plummeted. So when I got there, it was like less than half of what it was before COVID. And so I always love complicated problems. So I was like, how can we get back to normal enrollment after this experience? And so the things that I do, I start with using data. So I take surveys, look at enrollment data, look at hard facts to help me make decisions. I also look at like student feedback, community feedback, and things like that. And I use all of that together to help strengthen programs, boost access and enrollment. So we created different programs that were like a little bit different than what they'd been in the past, because things were different after COVID. And throughout my time running the school, we did meet pre-COVID numbers. And then when I moved into a different role and already had all these foundations in place, the enrollment now is higher than COVID. So like these are structures that I like to use at different places that I work to make sure that we can continue to grow and thrive together. So here are just some photos of things that I've done in the past with education outside of like formal classes. I've done tours. I did run our outreach program at the Toledo Museum of Art for a short time. And there I worked with senior centers and community centers bringing quality art experiences to different areas of the city. And then also I did a lot of programming with local artists. So right here we have, this is Dirty Kicks, the photographer that I was talking about. He's doing a youth tour about his exhibition. And then like in-gallery experiences again, like here we have drawing in the galleries. So it's just a way to activate the galleries and bring people in here to not just look at art, but experience art in new ways. And just one more slide. These are just like little things that I did that are like projects that had to do with some of the artwork in the gallery that I ran. So we did like printmaking, we did glass, and then this down here, this is a class that was taught by the artist. So this is the artist's work, and she taught a pastel class. So like learning directly from artists is also something that interests me. And then just briefly, I wanted to talk about my art. I am an artist, so just an example of my work. I primarily work in drawing and cut paper, but I also am multidisciplinary. So I have a background in a lot of different mediums, and I think that really helps me understand other artists. And so I'm very, something that I really value is attention to detail in craft because it's something that I know well.
Can you explain, is that paper?
Yeah, so this is cut paper. So it's ink on paper and it's hanging from the ceiling. And then there are 3 pedestals in front of it. So it's like an immersive experience where you can walk through it. It kind of feels like a waterfall or trees. So I think the one on the left is 13 feet. And then the one in the back is 9. So yeah, so large scale. The good thing about them is they're paper, so you can roll them up. You don't have to keep them flat. And then I'm community focused. So all the things that I talk about really have the foundation of community. And for me, it's whatever community I'm in. I've worked in a lot of different communities, and I know everyone is a little bit different. So I work to really understand the places that I live. And so I work really hard to build or at least foster arts ecosystems that support long-term growth. I think we have a really great art ecosystem here, but I'm a firm believer and there's always opportunity to grow and change and learn and help more people connect with art. And so I talk about designing systems, designing foundations. I do like to create a lot of like handbooks and things so that we can all be on the same page and work together to grow. So I did create something called the Community Engagement Toolkit, which is a foundational approach for building community-centered programming within an arts institution, but it's something that can be copy and pasted in other institutions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But it really helps expand pathways and opportunities for artists and then people to connect with art. And something that is really important to me is community collaboration too. Like we can talk about Crooked Tree Art Center, but we're a community as a whole. So how do we lift each other up together? And so here are a few examples of things that I've worked on. So on the bottom left, this is me and some of my colleagues at the Toledo Museum of Art. We're actually at the Oakland Museum of California. They call themselves OMCA. And they're really the leading arts institution in community engagement. They really integrate community in everything that they do. And so I received a grant to work with them to create the community engagement toolkit. And so it's kind of a foundational program where you use things like listening sessions or like focus groups, community conversations, so just like intercept surveys, and just like different types of surveying to help understand the community's needs for a specific thing. So it can be adopted by a specific program or just like a model of how you run an institution. But we did a lot of listening sessions and focus groups. So you can see these here where we're talking about specific exhibitions or like specific pieces of art. And then this bottom middle picture, I do want to say, so this is an exhibition. They had a really big budget, so please don't compare this to my exhibitions. They had a whole team. Um, but this is Ethiopia at the Crossroads. It's an exhibition of Ethiopian work from history up until contemporary time. And it was at the Toledo Museum of Art. And we had all these experts in the field and history, but we didn't have anyone who was from Ethiopia or had that like lived experience and cultural connection. So what I did was found people from different times when they lived in Ethiopia, because Ethiopia has a really complicated history. So it's important to talk to people, you know, who live there throughout 80s, 90s now. And we set up a listening session and we talked to them about this exhibition. And some of them were interested in art, some of them weren't, but they all had that cultural connection. And we actually rearranged the entire exhibition based on that conversation because it was more true to like the Ethiopian history if we move things around. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about community led and like talking to community. There are things that everyone has their own lived experience. So if we're talking about something that connects to your lived experience, it's really important that we like ask what that is, how that impacts you, and then move forward from there. So this is a really specific example and might not always apply to here, but there are different ways that we can definitely apply that to the future. So that's kind of just my history in community engagement. So talking about all that, like why Crooked Tree? Why did I come here? And so something that really stood out at Crooked Tree is the mission, of course, like it's the foundation of the institution to create ways for people to connect, learn, and grow through the arts. I'm a firm believer that art is for everyone. You don't have to like all art, but you're gonna like some art. And so something that's really stood out is I've been here for 2.5 weeks, but the connection with people in art is something that really has stood out, and then the community impact that Crooked Tree has. And so we have been talking about a lot about learning and connecting, but not as much about growing. So one way to think about growing as we move into this next part is an analogy of gardening. And some of you who were here before may have already heard me talk about this. But I think this is a good way to talk through kind of my values moving forward and what I do when I move into a new institution. So when you start a new garden, so for me, I just moved here, so I have to figure out the soil, what grows, what doesn't. We want to see what's thriving here and challenges that might exist and things like that within the institution. So it's kind of like starting a new garden. You want to see the challenges, you want to see what's working, what's not. And get the lay of the land. So the way that I usually get the lay of the land in an institution is to make sure that it's always community centered. I say community a million times a day. I always say like if you talk to me, you're probably going to hear me say the words community. So I'm sorry if you're getting annoyed, but I'm going to keep doing it. So always being community centered when looking at new institutions that I come into. I always use data to align with needs. So, when you guys take surveys, just talking to you all helps me understand the institution. And then while I am very data centered, I always say that I'm a data informed, but people driven. So I'm always going to focus on people's lived experiences. along with that data that I receive. And then it's always important to be goals and mission oriented. So when you're growing a garden, I mean, some people do this, but you don't usually just like throw seeds in and you're like, good luck. You usually have like a goal, like, certain seeds need certain attention and you want a certain outcome by the time the season's over. So that's the same thing that I do. Like, it's always important not to just do stuff to do stuff, but have a long-term goal and be missions oriented. So ways that I do this is like planting the right seeds. So taking time, evaluating, and figure out the right seeds that will grow in a specific area. So some of you might get frustrated with me at times because I do like to stand back and like take everything in before I act. And so I know a lot of you, especially who want to get in the store, you're like, yes, she's here. We can start doing stuff. But I just got here. I want to take some time and assess what's going on and then move forward from there. And so I like to evaluate things. So what I'm working on now is to evaluate what serves Crooked Tree and the community's needs, and then grow things based on those needs. Change does happen with growth. So I just want to say that. So things might change as I come in, but it's all based on, community needs. And something that's important to me too is to offer high quality exhibitions while representing diverse perspectives. I think a lot of people think that's separate, but it's definitely together. Everyone has their own unique experience and lived experience. And so I think it's really important to bring those together. And then balancing between honoring what the community already values and introducing new ideas and expanding horizons. So it's always important to introduce new things, like we want to respect what the community is used to, but there are new and exciting things in art out there that, I want to make sure that you all can experience. And something that's also really important to me is to bring people with me and don't outpace them. So innovation is really important to me, but we don't want to innovate just for innovation's sake. We want to make sure we're being intentional and bringing people along with what we do. And so once you have you figure out the lay of the land, you plant your seeds, that's when things start to take root. And so that's when we establish things that can grow and expand. So for example, in my previous career, when I ran the art school at the Toledo Museum of Art, I built these foundations early on, and it's still growing and rooting and growing deeper. And so you all have this garden that's already growing that have just entered. And so I'm looking at ways to help you all grow more and become more rooted. And so then once you have a rooted garden, you want to make sure that there are continued healthy systems to help it grow. So like you have to like weed a garden, you have to water it, you have to continue to upkeep it. And so that's about creating these arts ecosystems within our community to help us sustain and grow as a arts community. And relying on these foundational systems and designing programming around community and developing sustained partnerships. Like I said earlier, we bring each other up together. So community partnerships are so important. Artists are so important to, continue to help Crooked Tree grow. And then continuous evaluation and refinement. So again, like once you have a garden, you don't just want to leave it there. You want to continue to see what's working, what's not. We're dynamic people. We grow, we change. And so we want to make sure that we're constantly working with our community to grow. So this is what my leading values are. We'll see the future and how that aligns with Crooked Tree's mission and strategic plan. But I'm very data-driven, community-focused, and I really believe that art is for everybody. And so I'm here to help create ways for people to connect, learn, grow through the arts. So that's it. Thank you. All right, does anyone have questions? Yes.
Thinking back to your comments about your experiences in Toledo.
Yeah.
Was there a fee to attend or to these exhibits? Or was that free to the community? I know sometimes it can be a barrier for people to come if there's costs.
Yeah. So at the Toledo Museum of Art, it's free to park and free to get into the museum. There are certain exhibitions that were, there was a fee unless you had a membership. But all the exhibitions that I ran, since they were community focused, we made sure that they were free to the community. Yep. Yeah.
I recently moved here from Colorado.
Oh, great.
And the Toledo Museum of Art is a lovely, lovely place.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish more people knew that it's probably one of the best museums. In the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we just won 2 year. I guess I say we still. They just won 2 years in a row Best Museum in the US. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to go there, they're currently doing a full renovation though. So I would go there in fall of 2027 because right now there's not a lot open. So
They do like the block party.
yeah.
And they have so many outdoor.
Yeah. Yeah. Very community focused. Yeah.
So I know it's only been a few weeks,
Yes.
but you mentioned you like solving problems.
Mhm.
So far from what you've learned about circuitry in our community, do you see that there might be, I don't want to say problems, like a negative thing, but an opportunity or something that you're excited to dive into and explore?
Yeah. Great question. I think something that's really exciting is it seems like there is a lot going on within the community of like Petoskey and then like some of the surrounding cities. And so there's just like all these ways to collaborate that it already exist. And so I'm really excited to get to know different like businesses and organizations and artists around the area to like, really start to collaborate. I know that we do that now, but like finding more robust ways to, make connections. Anybody else?
Right here.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad to be here too. Yeah, great.
So I understand it takes a long time to develop these kinds of exhibitions. At what point would we see results of your work?
So I guess this was very much Sheila, but I put it up. So I guess there's that. So it's like a little taste of the stuff that I do. But as far as like exhibitions, so exhibitions, the first one that should be coming up is in the late fall, right? Yeah. Late fall, it will be stuff that I'm working on specifically. Yeah.
If you could run any exhibit here, what would be some of your choices of artists to bring in?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Um, so me personally, I do really like large installation immersive exhibitions. But I found ways that like you can have more traditional artwork within those exhibitions. So I don't think I'll say like specific artists, but some of the things that I really like are just like huge pieces, kind of like my own pieces, like that are large scale installations, but also having like art that's more accessible to people who might not enjoy that kind of thing. But there is this artist, he passed away a few years ago. I guess I will say one artist. His name is Bobby Anspach, and he creates like he created these wild like rooms that you go in and they're like colorful, and it's really about having like a solo experience within something that's like loud and exciting. I won't get into it too much, but it's just like an amazing out of body experience just within a gallery. And so those are the things that I like, the like, wow moments that really excite people. Yeah, hopefully that explains it. Yes.
I have another question about your personal art.
Mhm.
How often do you make time for it? Do you have any goals? And that, obviously, you're just starting a new
Mhm.
job, so it might be on the back burner for now, but you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think that definitely my arts career has taken a back burner, like my fine art career has taken a back burner to my arts career. So I do focus more on like things like this. But my goal every year as an artist is to get one piece of art into an exhibition. So whatever kind of work that takes. But I don't make art as much as I wish I could. And making those giant, large scale things are kind of tricky. So I'm trying to go smaller scale. Yeah.
Will you be involved, Jennifer, in having more art classes or, you know, I took jelly print painting here, which was like mind-blowing and wonderful.
Mhm.
Is that part of your purview or is that separate? That-
Yeah, so I oversee the visual arts area, which includes education. Alyssa is the manager. So classes and things like that. But we do have a lot of classes this summer. So I encourage you all to look online and register, or if you don't feel like looking online, you can come to our front desk and Crystal can help you find the right class for yourself. But we have some really fun classes that I think you'll enjoy. Anybody else? All right. Well, I will be sticking around for a while. So if you all have more questions that you don't want to say in front of a huge group, that's totally fine. But I did finish pretty early, so you have plenty of time to mingle, which is my favorite thing because it's part of building community and connection, and so I always love opportunities for that. But thank you so much for being so welcoming. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited to grow with you all. And so hopefully I'll continue to see you around Cricketry.